And joining us now, great to welcome, man who's written really 3 books now on money, best-selling author of Currency Wars, The Death of Money. He's got a brand new one out now called The New Case for Gold. We're joined today by James Rickards, and he joined us in on the telephone, I believe, from up at Connecticut today. And James, good to talk with you. How are you?
I'm fine, Doug. How are you doing? I'm doing great, thanks.
I'm doing great. Had a chance to read through the book, and always kind of been fascinated about investments, particularly gold. My dad was an investment banker, and he always talked about different types of investments, and gold was one of them. So I guess you got to be careful, though, right, when you're dealing with gold, right?
Well, what I recommend, Doug, is investors put 10% of their investable assets in gold. Now, when I say investable assets, take your home equity, put it to one side. Take your business equity, if you're a car dealer, a pizza parlor operator, dry cleaner, doctor, lawyer, whatever, put that to one side. So don't make risky investments or any kind of investment with your home equity or your business. But whatever's left, those are your investable assets, and I recommend 10% of that in gold. Now, the point is that people think if they sell everything and buy 100% gold. That's nonsense. That is not a prudent thing to do. Don't go all in on any one investment. But for 10%, it's kind of like fire insurance on your house. Nobody wants the house to burn down, heaven forbid. But if it does, you're glad you have the insurance. So have 10% in gold. If everything's fine, that's great. You're not going to get hurt with the 10% gold. But if everything else melts down, which it does every 6-7 years like clockwork, the gold is going to preserve your wealth.
Yeah, you talk about it in the book and what happened in 2008 and even previous to that, but I guess you were kind of on a bubble again. Nobody knows when a bubble can burst, but I guess people are worried about that, right? So gold plays into that whole thing.
Well, exactly. You don't know the exact timing of it, but just go back over recent history. So October 1987, the stock market fell 22% in one day. It wasn't a week or a month. It was in a single day. In today's Dow Jones Index, that would be the equivalent of 4,000 points. So, if the stock market went down 400 points, that's all anybody would be talking about. Imagine 4,000 points. That's what happened in 87. 1994, Mexican peso crisis. 1998, long-term capital management melted down, almost closed every stock and bond market in the world. 2000, the dot-com crash. 2007, the mortgage crash. 2008, Lehman Brothers, AIG. The Fed had to guarantee every money market fund and bank deposit in America. So these things, the point, Doug, is that these things happen with regularity. It's been 7 years since the next one, since the last one. The next one, it could be a year away, but it could be tomorrow. And you need to get ready for it today. Don't wait till it happens, because then it'll be too late.
I think gold is one of those things, really a misunderstood type of investment or commodity, because I guess all the older folks remember we were on the gold standard until, I guess, Nixon ended that, right, in the early 70s or late 60s, right? So that kind of threw everything out of balance once we went off the gold standard, didn't it?
Well, yeah, and we've had enormous inflation, depreciation of the dollar. From 1970 to 1981, so it's a 5-year period. The value of the dollar declined 50%, 50. Now, this isn't like saying over 100 years or over 50 years. In 5 years, it went down 50%. That's the kind of thing that can happen very quickly. And, of course, gold went up 2,500% in the same period. From 1971, it was $35 an ounce. 1980, it was $800 an ounce.
Right.
So that's about a 25 times increase. So gold does preserve wealth in those circumstances. And the problem is, when you really want your gold, like a lot of people say, they call me and say, Jim, I read the book, The New Case for Gold. I get it, but call me at 3 o'clock the day before it happens, and I'll sell my stocks and buy gold. And I tell people, look, I'm not going to know the day it happens. I can see it coming with certainty, and I know how bad it's going to be based on the science behind it, but I don't know the exact day. But I do know that when it does happen, it will happen very quickly. You will not have time to react, and so you need to prepare today.
Now, what does happen? I mean, God forbid, the economy blows up, and you have gold. I mean, is that going to be something you can turn into spendable cash? I mean, how does that work, in the worst-case scenario, if you have that gold?
Sure. Well, there are 2 scenarios. One, I would say the real worst-case scenario is, you have an infrastructure attack, the power grid goes down, the banks are closed, which happens from time to time. You're in social distress. In those circumstances, if you have some gold, you can actually use it as money. I mean, it is money. Mm-hmm. You could, go down to a local farmer's market or whatever. People are very entrepreneurial. They'll find ways to sell and buy food and actually use it to transact. But even in less dire circumstances, let's say, the supermarkets are open, the power grid's up, but markets are collapsing. They've they've closed the stock exchange. Well, then you could basically sell your gold for a different dollar amount. So put in maybe it's $1,250 an ounce today in the kind of scenario we're talking about. I do expect gold to go to $10,000 an ounce. So, you might not want to sell your gold, but if you do, you'll get that higher amount. That's the way of preserving wealth. And, Doug, when I say these things, some people, they kind of roll their eyes and say, well, that would never happen. Well, you know what? The New York Stock Exchange was closed for 5 months from July to December 1914. Every bank in the United States was closed by executive order of the president in 1933. More recently, the New York Stock Exchange closed for Hurricane Sandy, closed for 9/11. Banks were shut down in Greece and Cyprus in recent years. So these things do, in fact, happen. People are kind of in denial about it. But, again, don't put 100% of your wealth in gold, but 10% will be your insurance and your protection in the event of these things. And I go through all this in a lot of detail in my book, The New Case for Gold.
Is gold still being mined? In other words, is there more out there that we haven't found, or is it pretty much all out there right now and that's the same gold being traded back and forth?
No, there is more out there, and it is being mined, but it's so expensive and so difficult to mine that mining output is about 1.6% a year. So you take the total stock of gold in the world, it's about 180,000 tons.
Right.
The amount of new gold that's produced every year, about 1.6%. But that's a good thing because it's not easy to mine. I mean, it is being produced, but you can't print it, you can't bring it in large quantities. So that's why it's a very stable store of value, because the mining output is actually relatively small compared to the stock.
It's not like printing money where it really devalues it. Gold isn't getting devalued.
Well, exactly. I mean, the Fed has been expanding. The Federal Reserve has been expanding its balance sheet 22% per year for the last 6 years. Gold goes up 1.6%. So gold is a much more stable, form of money because you can't just pull it out of thin air, which is what the Federal Reserve does.
Now, I know you talk in the book, about purchasing gold. You can do it, I guess, a couple of ways: the actual physical gold in hand, and I guess in different kind of funds or stocks, right?
Yeah, I recommend physical gold. There are some what I call paper gold products out there, but they're not really gold. I mean, people talk about exchange-traded funds or ETFs. There is a very prominent one. The ticker symbol is GLD. So people say they buy that and they think they own gold, but they don't. It's a share of stock. It's a share of stock in a trust. The trust owns some gold. There's some gold out there somewhere, but you can't get your hands on it. What you have is a tradable share. If it goes up or down or whatever, and you want to get out of it, you have to sell that share to another investor. But at no point do you ever have the physical gold, nor can you get access to the physical gold. The same thing with COMEX Gold Futures. There's the commodity exchange. They trade gold futures. You can go open a futures brokerage account and buy some, but the problem is they sell 100 times more contracts than they have gold. I mean, they have a warehouse with some physical gold in it. You can put in notice and take delivery of the gold, but the problem is there's $100 of long futures contracts for every dollar of actual gold. So what happens if all 100 people show up and say, give me the gold? The first guy might get his gold, but everyone else is going to get closed out. The contracts are going to be terminated. They'll send you a check. They're not going to steal your money. They'll send you a check for yesterday's price. Meanwhile, today it's going up $200 an ounce, tomorrow $300 an ounce, and you're sitting there saying, wait a second, the reason I bought this paper gold is I wanted to be protected when the price skyrockets. Now you're telling me I'm closed out. You're sending me a check, and I'm losing out. So in other words, the time you most want the gold is the time your paper contract is going to be closed out by the bank or by the exchange. So if you have physical gold, you don't have to worry about that. You've got the gold. I mean, nobody can take it away from you, and no exchange rule or bank rule or anything else can diminish the physical gold that you have. The other thing, Doug, is, I call my book The New Case for Gold, and people say, well, what's new about it? I mean, these debates and arguments have been going on for decades, if not centuries. But there are some new 21st century reasons to have gold. The main one is the threat of cyber financial warfare. Vladimir Putin and Russia have a 6,000-member cyber brigade working day and night to hack, erase, and delete digital records. And the same thing is true, by the way, in North Korea, Iran, Syria, and others. So I run into people, and they say, well, where are your investments? Where's your wealth? And they say, oh, I've got money market funds, I've got stocks, I've got bonds, I've got munis or whatever. I say, no, you don't. What you have are electrons. Every form of wealth that you just described is a digital record somewhere. And if the Russians can get in and wipe it out, you have nothing. Good luck restoring it. And then people say, oh, well, that would never happen. You know what? It happens all the time. Just last week, the country of Bangladesh, one of the poorest countries in the world, they had $100 million deposited with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, which is arguably the safest bank in the world. Poor country has $100 million at the Fed. That money disappeared. And your listeners, they can Google it. Just Google Bangladesh, 100 million Federal Reserve. You'll find the story very easily. The $100 million disappeared. If they had had gold, they'd still have their wealth. So again, I don't recommend 100% gold, but 10% gold will protect you against having your digital wealth, your electrons, wiped out.
Fascinating topic and a lot of great information in the book called The New Case for Gold. We're talking with James Rickards today. And James, you have a website you want to direct people to? Sure.
It's www.jamesrickardsproject.com. Rickards is Rickards. So jamesrickardsproject.com. Also on Twitter at James G. Rickards. And the book, The New Case for Gold, is available on Amazon and all your bookstores.
Great. James, pleasure talking to you. Hopefully we can talk to you again when the next book comes out. But thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Doug.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or Doug Miles.